And welcome to California's 2021 annual conference. I am Jessica Cruz, the CEO of NAMI California, and I just am here to welcome you all. We had a wonderful first day yesterday where we heard from our director of the California Health and Human Services, Dr. Mark Galley, and also Stephanie Welch on what the state is doing policy-wide on their investment to mental health. We also were able to hear from amazing plenaries on our psychiatric directives, state hospital work, ACEs, and some issues on housing and homelessness. Following that, we had some wonderful workshops. So I hope everybody was able to get something out of yesterday. Today, we have another amazing day planned. In just a few short seconds, we're going to hear from a special message from one of our top state leaders and a state of the state from our board president, Pat Cornier, along with an inspiring story from Dave and Marla, who will be able to share their own personal story and hopefully some hope with all of you. So I want to kick it off and officially welcome you all to the 2021 Day 2 NAMI California Annual Conference.
Hey everybody, it's Governor Gavin Newsom here, and I'm grateful for the chance to welcome all of you to NAMI's California 2021 Annual Conference. In California, as it should be the goal of every state, it's to give each and every individual the opportunity to thrive and be a part of a healthy, equitable community. And we know that this mental health crisis touches all corners of our state and our nation. And our California Comeback Plan takes on mental health by transforming, quite literally, we're proud of this year, transforming the behavioral health system for children and young people, supporting vulnerable and homeless families, and building an age-friendly state for older Californians, as well as providing care for the most marginalized. Investments that are unprecedented in California history. This transformation, its aim, its goal, our collective aim and goal is to strengthen our critical safety net and programs to advance mental health and well-being for all Californians, as well as social and economic mobility. So I want to just thank you, NAMI California, for your extraordinary partnership, for your leadership, for your commitment and faith and devotion to the work that we all have in front of us to advance new treatments and new trends in mental health care. Your advocacy has been foundational to help ensure that California is as safe and supportive environment as any state in America for folks with mental health needs. So I hope you enjoy the conference, and thank you again for your leadership, as well as having me here just to say a few words. Enjoy.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Day 2 of NAMI California's annual conference. I love the way the governor used words like unprecedented and transformational in his comments, and I think that these have been unprecedented and ultimately driving transformational change, which is exciting. My name is Dr. Pat Cornier, and I have the honor of serving as president and of the NAMI California Board of Directors. And I'm excited to share some details with you today about a very challenging year, and one in which NAMI can be very proud about our contributions here in California. It's a year when NAMI California and the wonderful affiliates rose up to meet those challenges. Next slide. You know, at this time of year, we all thought we would be back together in person for this conference. So much for that. A lot of things have happened since then, and we have more hope now than ever that we can see a light at the end of the tunnel. One of the most important things we've all seen and experienced is the remarkable upswing in mental health needs that have been present throughout the pandemic, with increased isolation and anxiety really acting as a catalyst in those who may be vulnerable to mental illness. Further, We know that as the pandemic begins to subside, we are seeing a large amount of interest in mental illness that NAMIs across our nation will be called upon to assist with in the coming year. We at NAMI California stand ready to continue to do our part to make sure that we continue to meet these challenges head on and make sure no one is left behind in getting the help they or their loved ones need. Throughout the remainder of today's presentation, you're going to hear some of the ways that NAMI California worked to adapt and rise to the many challenges brought on by COVID-19. But most importantly, it's how NAMI California continues to find new ways to be there for those who need us now more than ever. So, highlights and achievements. Let's talk a little bit about our programs and services in the fiscal year of 2020-2021. Last year, NAMI California continued to push hard to provide training and resources to the affiliates and communities that they serve across the state. In this year, for example, we met 100% of all requested training needs from our affiliates, providing training to over 307 trainers and facilitators through NAMI California's signature programs. Over these past 12 months, NAMI California's team continued to be in close contact with our affiliates statewide through Zoom meetings to provide technical assistance and to learn even more from one another as we move through this prolonged and unprecedented time. Our programs in California exist as a partnership. And for us at NAMI California, that means getting resources out to the communities that need them. This year alone, more than $900,000 in direct support has gone out to our local affiliates to promote programs and to provide employment to NAMI members and their families. With the passage of the Peer Support Specialist legislation, NAMI California wasted no time in making sure that the communities we serve were leading the way in being employed in these critical roles across the state. Today, I'm proud to share that this year, NAMI in California has employed more than 100 peers in full-time work. This is a milestone achievement and one we expect to build on over time. Next slide. In addition to employing so many folks, we also have our eyes set clearly on the future and on the pipeline to both creating and training leaders across the state. Throughout California this year, we've launched recruitment programs spanning across social media and in partnership with our affiliates. We have recruited hundreds of qualified candidates who want to become peer support specialists and help change the mental health care system. We didn't stop there. This year alone, we've trained more than 200 new leaders throughout our state and doing it through our state training programs. And we are now ready to fill paid or volunteer positions across California. Next slide. Our NAMI on Campus high school program has continued to grow. Through the pandemic, we continued to reach out to schools and get them involved in getting support out to students, those in need across California. This year, we held trainings virtually for students and faculty to effectively meet them where they are. We also updated NAMI on Campus High School as a program to be more accessible to student distance learning realities throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes updates to the startup process, as well as hosting trainings. Updated NCHS trainings included a virtual format for schools across California so that they could interact and learn about mental health and creating a sustainable NCHS club. This year, we trained schools from across the state who are providing support and education to their schools virtually, ensuring NAMI's influence and resources are reaching those who are the most in need. Despite the challenges that came with the pandemic, NAMI California has continued to receive interest from schools across the state, and we will continue to do everything in our power to keep NAMI's programs at the forefront of youth services. Next slide, please. If there's one thing we're not known for at NAMI California, it's sitting on our laurels. Although we've had an incredibly successful year, we are working with partners on new and innovative ways to reach and help those in need. In the coming months and years, we will have more to share about these impactful partnerships and the ways in which we hope to continue to improve the care delivery system in California that NAMI is such an integral part of. Next slide, please. Shifting to community engagement now, let's talk about how NAMI California has worked this year to engage communities across our great and diverse state. Next slide. On Wednesday, we were honored to host our annual multicultural symposium to much success. We were honored to have Dr. Sergio Aguiar-Gaxiola, Professor of Internal Medicine and Director of the Center for Reducing Health Disparities, as our keynote speaker. Although we were physically separated again this year, we were happy to be together virtually, to learn from each other, and to find new ways to connect to the communities of California. We were really proud of the event, and we hope you were able to join us. If you weren't, the entire event will be available on our website in a couple of days. Next slide. In keeping with our important work around connecting statewide and local leaders in important dialogue this year, we launched our Town Hall series. As you can see from this slide, we were incredibly fortunate to have leaders from across industries and areas of expertise come and share their important work and insights with us. Throughout this year, we convened these important dialogues not only to hear from the experts, but also so they can hear from our families about what matters and how they can use their important work to move California forward. If you want to learn more about any of these events, you can go to namicalifornia.org. That's NAMICA.org/town hall for more information. Next slide. A few last key highlights to show here. At the NAMI California office, we're always looking for new ways to bring people in, hear their experience, and connect them to decision makers. Maybe more than ever, that connection and convening has been of critical importance. As you can see here, over 300 participants showed up for Advocacy Day. 1,400 town hall participants were connected to our work in 38 different counties, and more than 1,000 participants in surveys and focus groups were part of the insights that we gather and share and learn from. Next slide. A little bit about this year's annual directors elections. This year's adjusted voting period was May 26th to June 24th. I want to give a big thanks to everyone who participated in the election by casting a vote or allowing your vote by proxy. Our 10% quorum of 3,996 active members was exceeded with 538 valid votes. It is a policy of NAMI California that the recruitment of directors is a continuous shared responsibility between members, employee partners, and current board members. It's not only our policy, but our practice to seek candidates who will provide, over and above all, positive contributions in a combination of the necessary skills, background, and qualifications to make the NAMI California board do its best work. Also, in an effort to ensure a level playing field, we follow our no campaigning policy. This year, the nominating committee approved 1 incumbent and 3 new candidate applications. So, without further ado, we are excited to announce, congratulations to NAMI Fresno's Chris Roop on her re-election to the NAMI California Board of Directors, and election of incoming directors, NAMI Tri-Valley's Laura Gregorio, NAMI Sacramento's Dr. Robert McCarran, and NAMI Alameda County's South's Dr. Stuart Butler. If you've not already had a chance to do so, for a limited time, you can still view each candidate and their video on the NAMI California website voting page. Now, on behalf of the NAMI California board members who have joined us virtually today and everyone who's participated in their by casting their vote, congratulations, Chris, Robert, Stuart, and Laura. I look forward to serving beside you, be it virtually or in person, on the NAMI California Board of Directors in the months to come. Thank you all. This brings us to the end of our 2020-2021 annual update. As you've just heard, over the last hour, we've had another incredible year together while facing many ongoing challenges. Although what we covered today touches only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the work we do at the state office, we hope it gives you a glimpse into our efforts to change California for the better with your help. A special shout out to all of our wonderful affiliates who make up Team NAMI. We could not do it without each of you, and we look forward to working closely over the next year with you to continue providing wholehearted support and services we are known for to the families and individuals throughout our state who are impacted by mental illness. Again, we want to thank each of you for taking time out of your day to attend this wonderful annual conference. Next slide. Now, I have the great pleasure to introduce our keynote speakers, Marla and David Thomas. David Thomas is an accomplished musician and producer-songwriter. He has produced records for many artists, from Hayden to the Backstreet Boys, but his most valued accomplishment is his family. He is married to Marla Thomas. Marla is also recognized for her appearances on Love and Hip Hop. Hollywood is Moniece Slaughter's mother. Her blog, Marla Talks, has become an outlet for her thoughts and events surrounding her daily life. She and her husband, David Thomas, share the Marla and Dave Show. Marla and Dave are members from the NAMI San Fernando Valley and also hosts of Mental Health Mondays, a podcast. Marla and Dave have a child living with a mental health condition. Their Mental Health Mondays show is aimed at erasing the stigma surrounding mental health and offering help to those who are committed to love their brain-different loved ones beyond reason. Marla and Dave, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. We want to start off today by first thanking Dr. Cornier and everybody at the NAMI board. We're still waiting for our video to get going. Like I said, we want to thank Dr. Cornier and everybody at the NAMI Board of Directors. Thank you, Jessica, and everybody at NAMI California in general. Like you heard, we are Marla and Dave. We do a lot of things.
I'm so used to he mentioned Mental Health Monday. We usually start off with, we're Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays.
Exactly.
Yes.
So right now, I want to just echo Dave's sentiment by saying thank you so much for having us. We consider this an honor. I think we should first probably you guys almost took away my whole first half by you were so clear with our letting everybody know who we are. I don't even know where to go from here, but I'll start with David and I. We know a little bit about our professional accomplishments. Dave and I have a very unique story as friends and husband and wife. We met when we were 6 and 8 years old. We were in second grade when we first made an acquaintance with each other.
The relationship was a little different back then.
Yeah, it was
not
really
quite what it is now, but at 6 and 8, one can imagine.
But 33 years later, and a beautiful family, quite a story to tell. This is our family that's up on the screen now. So you've got Dave. I guess it would be to my left. Anyway, so you got Dave in the corner. I'm squeezed between David and David. So David, my husband, and David, my son. And then at the bottom, seated is our youngest daughter, Drew Alexis, and Moniece Slaughter, with looks like a dislocated leg. But in reality,
that's our family.
She's our fashionista girl.
That is our family. But we were, like most people, thought we had a great family, and we do have a great family, but no one plans on a family that's going to be touched with mental illness. And like most people, when we found out that we were not only dealing with one child suffering from mental illness, but two, actually. And my schedule, being a member of Take Six, a 10-time Grammy Award-winning group, always on the road, left Marla at home most of the time by herself, handling the family, and starting to deal with issues and recognizing things that didn't quite seem in the normal spectrum of behavior. And wondering, and we were blessed to have Marla's mom, my mother-in-law. We lovingly call her Mimi. She was on our Mental Health Monday show this past Monday, and will be again this Monday coming up, part 2 of that presentation. But she, with her experience in psychiatric nursing, started really giving us strong suggestions to really start looking into this more seriously and start taking our kids to therapy as young as fourth and fifth grade.
Fourth and fifth grade was the first time. I think that one of the most important things that I want to reiterate is, and I'm my mission is to level the playing field and to normalize the differences that so many of us have. And I want to level it by saying this. Dave brought up the fact that when you invest, it's really tough as a parent, because when you invest, what you feel is the normal standard. You have this spectrum of what we all call consensus norm, and you're loving. You've got your kids. You're doing all of the fundamental foundation things that we all know to do. And first of all, let me just say this. If you're a parent, it's not anything that you're taught. It's innate. So a connected, caring parent, we all are the same. So for us to begin to see these differences in our children, the first thing, to be honest, is denial. You don't have any baseline to understand what you're actually dealing with. And I think that I need to encourage parents to not take it. It's not about you. It's not. You feel like when these things begin to happen. Number one, the denial, in my opinion, for myself, was feeling like some kind of way I had failed. What have I done? Like, what didn't I do? What more can I do? And so when these things start to present themselves in our children, like Dave said, it was really home front was my stomping ground. I was a stay-at-home mom. That's what I did. So really just desperate to be effective as a parent at all costs. So when you put in that time and they are your first focus, and for all of a sudden, it takes a minute, because to be truthful, adolescence is already unsteady.
Fraught with difficulty.
For sure. I mean, that's why a lot of the times, I know, at least with schizophrenia, they say that, it's the disease, it's actually the condition of stolen lives, because you're diagnosed in your prime, 18 to 25. So you, as a parent, have raised these children or this child, and all of a sudden, there are things that you don't recognize. And you begin to, when you start to understand the depth of difference, you literally spend your first years of aid and help trying to recover a relationship or restore it back to what you are familiar with.
Right.
I don't recognize this child anymore that I was so close to, that I basically, I knew them before they knew themselves. So,
yeah, and I guess what Marla's alluding to is, before you get to a period of accepting the new reality, you're still trying to get back to that consensus norm, not understanding at the beginning that you're not going to get back there, and there's a new reality that you need to accept if you're going to move forward in a positive way. And so for us, it started with our oldest daughter, who had a diagnosis of I guess anxiety at first, and so she started therapy there. Then that didn't really seem like, then it went to depression, and none of those diagnoses really seemed to fit. And because we weren't familiar, we were leaning on the advice and the expertise of our mom, Marla's mom, my mother-in-law, the matriarch of the family, and she encouraged us to keep going, because that process sometimes, to settle down on the exact diagnosis that's going to really, and again, we want to say that the diagnosis is not the most important thing, because the most important thing is getting the help that you need, because that, for us, again, one word that you hear throughout the mental health community is stigma. The diagnosis can tend to place a stigma on a child, on a human being, on a person, that is just that, a human
He's
being, a person.
marginalizing.
And we don't say, oh, this person, oh, this is a cancer patient
You
as
are
the first
cancer.
moniker. You're not cancer. You're not any other disease that you deal with. But we tend to do that with mental illness. So the beginning of the stigma can start there. And so we had to learn. And again, one of our messages today that you're going to hear us continually talking about is, especially for parents, it's not your fault. You're not responsible for it, but you are accountable to deal with it.
Right. Absolutely. And another thing that I just like to make messages clear. One of the clear messages that I say all the time, mental health is not something you cure, but it's something that you have to manage. And so, we look at it, and again, especially from a parental standpoint, we look at it and we want to fix it. These are the little kids we put on our lap when they scuff their knee, and we just, kiss it and make it better. So, that there's a one-time fix in your mind. And so for me and for most of us, you really have to jump into the actual man, you have to go further into really just staying open, accepting what you're seeing, and then, like Dave said, you're not trying to slap a label on it, but you have to deal with the behavior that you're seeing. And I want to have Tony I want to introduce you, by the way, in this segment to each one of our children individually. So we'll start with, David mentioned our oldest daughter. This is Moniece, and Moniece, many know her from Love and Hip Hop Hollywood. She starred in that reality show for 6 years, 7 seasons, and she's our eldest. She's 34, and she's the mother of our beautiful grandson Cameron,
Absolutely,
who's 11. And so Moniece, like Dave said, and I want to hold that picture of Moniece up for just a second. We judge based on what we see, and that is something that is huge. What I had to really come to grips with is mental health does not have a look. It's not halted by your height or religion, the color of your skin. None of those things have you in a spot where that will never be me, because he's Dave Thomas, he has 10 Grammys, that couldn't happen to his family. Oh, Marlon Dave, this is a good point to look at and say, our children are beautiful.
Not even to mention the pressures of being a young woman, a young lady, a girl growing up with those types of, a beautiful young lady, the pressures that social media put on young kids in general, to look a certain way, to behave a certain way. These are things that parents, we really need to look out for.
And next I'm going to introduce you to my son, which he's the man in the middle, the only one. This is our son, David Jr., or we call him DJ. He's really David the second. So if he would say I'm not a junior, but we call him DJ. He's David the second, and again, another very public story that we are blessed that we were able to come out on a positive end. But our son, his diagnosis of bipolar 1 schizoaffective, which he was given at 23, he's now 32. And around 27, which, there are things within the diagnoses or within the behavior that you learn as you go. I had no idea that sustained mania would cause a psychosis, and he came off of medication.
Even before that, we didn't realize that, especially when he's starting to deal with young adolescents as they first get introduced to potentially situations like drugs in high school, and sometimes a little younger. We didn't realize that there was such a thing as a dual diagnosis back then. Again, like we said at the beginning, we were just like everybody else, learning this as we go. And we want to give you a sort of a framework that, as we started saying, that we started dealing with therapy with our children, with our oldest daughter in about 4th, 5th grade. Our son then started when he was in around the same time.
Junior high, yeah.
And then for him, more physical, actual therapy with his therapist around 6th grade. And then throughout that whole process, again, not just titrating medication, but the therapeutic approach in general. We didn't really settle on to what seemed like a very appropriate way to deal with what we were seeing in the behaviors of our kids until I guess Moniece was around maybe 19.
Around 21.
Around 21, formerly when we found out that she was really dealing with a mood disorder, a personality disorder. And one of the things that we would like to say, again, back to that word stigma, because our oldest daughter has sometimes a harder time accepting the formal diagnosis, and that's why we don't harp on the diagnosis as a definition of what, we don't let that define her, and we don't even bring it up.
Right.
We just hopefully help her maintain her approach to deal with it.
Right.
And as long as that's going on, things work out well. Just like with any situation, and everybody knows in this club that Marla was saying earlier before we got on air, it's a club that you don't want to be a member of.
You wish there was only one membership given out.
Absolutely, but because we're members of this unfortunate club, we don't want to continue to harp on what the diagnosis is, just what we can do to make things better.
And I'm going to jump in right here with Dave, because I think that, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Our son, the first disturbance and tragic experience we had was that he got into drugs, and he went to rehab, but it that first diagnosis, as Dave mentioned, dual diagnosis. He went to rehab, totally recovered, and then it was after that we understood, wait a minute, there's something else.
There's something else, because even when he was in his rehab, certain behaviors that
Right.
once the drugs were no longer present, that's when you have to start dealing with the underlying conditions that are even bringing up the need for or the desire to experiment with the drugs and alcohol. And so when that was taken away, the addiction to those substances were taken away, we found out that he had even more serious things, that he was causing disturbances at the rehab. He was kicked out of that rehab, which is a long-term rehab, which is
18
good.
months.
Because for young people, it's easy sometimes to get off of the substance, but it's not so easy to change the way that the mind is working so that they can be productive members of society. And so we were able to prevail just begging and pleading. And it just so happened that the owners, the people who ran the rehab center, were family members of mine. And if it wasn't for that, our son would have been kicked out at least 3 times for incidences before. Because he was showing up with violent behavior and things that just seemed unlike who we knew him to be. And it was very distressing. And so with parents that go through these types of things, we understand, and it's not easy. Most marriages do not last when you're dealing with mental health issues and brain differences, as we like to call it, in a family. It's usually such a tumultuous stress that it breaks up the entire family.
And that's because, again, like Dave said, it's a very destabilizing situation. And I'm going to go to our last child. I'll introduce you to who we call the baby. So that's our youngest daughter, and she's 28. And I want to hold this picture as well, because this is most important to me, to understand the family structure. 3 children, a blended family. I came into the marriage with Moniece, and Dave raised her. So we got married when Moniece was 1. I was in a whole other relationship thinking I was headed in another direction. And Dave came back and offered me another peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I couldn't resist.
I make a mean peanut butter and jelly.
But in the meantime, 3 children, the same 2 parents, the same amount of love, the same amount of care, the same amount of investment. They're very different. The youngest is fortunate, does not have a brain difference, but they're all our children. And so I have to say that, and when my son, I'm remiss when we ended up by proxy almost, and we on Dr. Phil, we didn't. That's not something that we initiated, but all things work together for good. But as we were there, one of the things I said was, two things. One, the only way that we're willing to even they had to find our son on the street at that time, but it was really about paying for care that we could not afford in an IOP program. And then for me, it was also about showing America at some point that you're not alone and that we have 3 children. So I wanted to see the scope of the whole family, because when you see the scope of the whole family, then you can begin to understand and relate to the transformation, and that has to come from you. So transparency is my tool. I use transparency to literally, but by the grace of God, there go I. And so for our family, I think that, seeing all 3 of the children, understanding where David and I came from, and just really beginning to reiterate that no one gets to pick it. You're not exempt. The amount of money you have in the bank won't change it. And so henceforth, we'll go forward with when we faced all these challenges and when our children got beyond they took on their own consent at 18, which meant they had to buy in. We then had to change our tactic and say to ourselves, man, all we can do at this point is build a relationship that hears them, adjusts to them, does not scrutinize them, and that what they feel most from the 2 of us is love, which is where, I told someone in my family, to be honest, said, this is dangerous. Sorry, there's a little gnat here. This is dangerous. And, it's time for you guys to just do your own, kick him out. And this doesn't even make any sense. At this age, he's going to have to be on his own. And I realized at that point that what we were doing in the eyes of a lot of people is we were loving beyond what others considered to be reasonable at that stage in their life.
Even to what we considered reasonable. Again, like Marla said, I'm Dave Thomas, 10-time Grammy Award winner. And one of the programs that our son was in at the beginning, again, thanks to the Dr. Phil show, they started taking care of those expenses at the beginning. Then suddenly they stopped. Now, he was still at the facility. Turns out that facility, we didn't realize, was about $5,600 a week.
Yeah, it was about $20,000. It was $20,000 a month, and you unable to be covered by insurance in the states of California and or Florida.
And so I say that to say that no matter where you're coming from, what your social economic strata that you find yourself in, there's that end of it. And during our son's different stints in jail, unfortunately, due to his mental illness, he also experienced the other side of things. Now, before we get to what Marla is saying, the sort of the basis for us starting, and really Marla started the foundation. Our foundation is called Love and Beyond Reason, because that's what we found ourselves doing, and that's what we try to help other families do as well. It's not something for us. It wasn't a choice for our children to remain on the street, for our children to be dealing with these situations alone. They didn't ask to be on this planet. We brought them here.
I did in particular. Yeah.
Yes. I say we, but I use that very lightly.
Yeah, he had the fun part.
So all that being said, we've experienced the best facilities and unfortunately some of the worst facilities. I'll let Marla keep going.
Well, what David is saying is completely accurate. The foundation is actually now designed to help connect families just like ours, which is a lot that I know that you know. If you're in this conference or you're in the sound of our voice, you're here for a reason, and it's either someone that is in your family or it could even possibly be something you're dealing with. But what we know is that the transition homes, even so, recently our son had an episode, and when we find these cracks, which is amazing. I had no idea the depth of the chasm of broken resource that we ran into trying to get help for our children. And David and I were saying, man, I'll put it to you like this. I'm tenacious. We do have a fair amount of influence, support, But I don't love my children more than you love yours. So when I think about that, what about those who don't have the ability to take the 25 steps that I had to take, even to get to the bottom?
And now get this, we became affiliated, we became aware of NAMI, and like most people who finally go and become members of NAMI, which we suggest, and we are grateful to NAMI, the greatest mental health resource in the United States, period. Local affiliates everywhere, in wherever you live, there is a local affiliate, I promise you. And if you have issues, you have to get in contact with NAMI. But we took the family to family class, and it gave us a new level of empathy, even for our own son, as we were dealing with some of the classes that get you to understand what it's like to hear voices and have auditory hallucinations and things like that, while you're trying to focus on just menial tasks,
living,
and just doing everyday task is just it's almost impossible. And so that gave us a new level of empathy that get right down to the heart of the issue. Kudos to NAMI for the high school clubs and things like that.
Peer to peer.
Hopefully we get to the next generation that doesn't have the same level of stigma. And in each following generation, the stigma gets lessened to where it's almost not there at all. But to say that, one of the things that we found out is that with all of that NAMI is doing, kudos to the governor for making resources available, we just don't have enough beds. And at the end of the day, there's so much crisis, and the pandemic just made everything even worse. There are just not enough beds. And what we realized is that once everything was deinstitutionalized, and for a good reason, because people were being just stuck in these institutions for life, and they weren't getting better.
It wasn't about care.
But over time, we even started with a good idea. We lost the empathy again. And now we're at a place where we have small, unregulated facilities that quite honestly, some of them are just literally substandard. Our son was in one in his last episode, and I had to take him out of there. And
meds and beds.
One of the things that now Marla's mom, with her psychiatric experience, is helping us do is to develop staffing for these smaller, unregulated facilities.
Effective staffing that will actually be
that
able
meets
to
the
progress.
needs, follows their nutrition, follows their medication, making sure that they're in contact with group therapy and doctors that can actually see each patient in different areas throughout the day and throughout their experiences there. Because what we're trying to do is get these people, these human beings, our children, our family members, back to being able to contribute to society.
We want to recover them and help them transition.
All right, and so we don't want to take up too much time with our story, and so we want to get down to question and answering. But before we do, like most families that find themselves dealing with loved ones suffering with mental illness, we found ourselves intuitively understanding that the solution to the overall problem that plague the mental health care system starts with us as individuals, private citizens, rolling up our sleeves and becoming part of the solution, whether that be by donating our time, our expertise, donating our money, or lending a helping hand to those we see on the street, maybe talking to themselves, clearly mentally unwell. Whatever you're able to do, we need you to simply
do it.
Together we can erase the stigma surrounding mental illness and create an atmosphere surrounding mental health care that is on par with any other illness, and it doesn't have to define who you are. And so with that, we're Marla and Dave, and we'll turn it back over and open it up to some question and answers.
Thank you, guys. You guys are so wonderful in all that you do. If you guys have any questions, go ahead, and we have about a few minutes before our workshops get started. You can put them into the chat. Either if you're logged in Zoom, you can put them in there, or if you're on our Fuba app, that is where our conference is kind of also settled, you can put them in there and we will get them to you. There looks like one. How do you balance and or incorporate your faith into your mental health? Great
wow,
question.
That's an amazing question, because on our show, on our previous show that we had, the Marla and Dave show, we had some of a friend, because there's a young man that we see in our neighborhood quite often. We had his parents on and he suffers with schizophrenia, like our son. We had the parents on the show and threw us off because his dad basically said, we think our son is possessed by the devil. Okay. That was heartbreaking for us to hear, only because even my own father, who was a mental health professional, said for us dealing with our son, he just needs to affiliate more with Christ. Identify more with Christ. And so the Marla, who is a little bit more, has a different personality than mine, she then says, well,
was Jesus in the pill?
Was Jesus in his medication? Because when he was on his medication, he was doing pretty good. As soon as he comes off the medication, he needs to identify more with Christ. So I'm not sure, is Christ the same as the medication? Facetiously speaking, not to offend anyone.
And I just want to give a very clear answer to this. It doesn't have to be either or.
Absolutely.
Your faith is something that is a foundation that's always in place.
And it's a major part of your support system.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be either or.
Again, that's something else we learned at NAMI, that you have all of these different things that people say are the answer. That's just part of your team.
Right.
And so your faith is something that you lean on, especially as parents. We're dealing with stresses for things that we can't help. That's where your faith really comes in.
We have another question. It says, how can you make sure the family stays close and married in dad has support when mental health goes in 10 different directions, so he doesn't get lost and feeling defeated? So how can you make sure your family basically is staying close when things are kind of in chaos and things are going in 10 different directions?
Oh, we've been there.
Absolutely.
I can tell you that's probably something that I have had to make the biggest adjustment. But the foundation really is understand what the objective and the goal is, and to be totally truthful as our foundation. If love is the goal, then your need it becomes a secondary instinct to be honest. And how you get the family close is by deciding. You decide together.
It has to be intentional. And I'll add to what Marla is saying is that not only does it need to be intentional, but if we truly want to erase the stigma, we have to recognize and admit that we as parents also have a lot of stresses. And it's not just about coming to a crisis where you say, oh, there's a mental illness. It's also about your mental wellness. And it's okay for you as a parent to go get some therapy too if you're dealing with things that are doing just like the question said, pulling you in 10 different directions.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and then too understand
which we've had to do, by the way.
Decide between the two of you if you're in a family situation, someone has a better way of doing something than you might. So in other words, we decide who's the better communicator or who does he relate to on this issue more than this, and we advocate to each other so we can be the strongest that we can be to really address the needs.
Yeah, that's great. What are some of the signs that you noticed from your kids at that young of an age?
Oh, wow. I'm a jump way in on this one. I remember with our oldest daughter with the personality disorder, the first time that I audibly said out loud, something's not right. She was 11 months. And that was because she was dissociative even then. We left to go out of town. We were gone for a weekend. She was with grandparents. And when we got back, she completely ignored us, and I said to David, "Is she?
Yeah, something.
What baby?
I've never seen a baby have an attitude.
They're so identified with you that it's like, my everything is back." And then when she was 4, she was 4.
We used to think it was a joke.
She would
tell stories, and
yes.
She was just very emotive in her storytelling. But we noticed that she was so into the story that we could just say tree. Oh, and then I climbed the tree, red. Oh, and there was a red doll up in the tree. And we're like, wait a minute, what? She was just so into the story that it was like, man, we don't know where this is coming from.
And bigger than that, I think the culminating one for me was she would say all the time, you think I'm ugly and the kids at school are doing this and this and this. So I got upset and I called the preschool and I said, okay, the bullying is not going to happen. They were like, Mrs. Thomas,
could you just come up?
Yeah, here are our open play hours, and we just want you to come just you show up whenever you want and just look through the one-way mirror. And
exact
everything
opposite.
that our daughter said was being done to her,
she was the one doing it
to the other kids. Yeah. And I was like, whoa. So at that point, the manipulation was already there.
And that's just with our daughter. With our son, I was working with the Backstreet Boys. Here's one anecdote. And, one of the Backstreet Boys went to say something to him, and his answer was so unrelated to the question that it was like,
everyone, we were at a
did you not even hear the question? And it was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It just threw us off. And little signs like that. Then as kids experiment with drugs and alcohol at a young age, and you think it's a phase, but for our son, it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And so we started realizing, there's something else here. Even as we had the realization, we didn't know what to do. So that's something that take notice early and try to get as much professional help. So.
Yeah, with you guys, we are out of time. We had a few more questions. We could talk for so long.
Absolutely.
Your story is so inspiring, how you guys love one another, how you guys are spreading the love and hope through your podcast, through all the work that you're doing. I am so happy that you agreed to join us as our keynote speaker. Thank you guys so very much for being with us today. And good luck on the rest of your endeavors. I know you're very, very busy, so thank you again for your time. And for those of you who are participating in our conference, there's about 5 more minutes and there's a transition into your workshop. So enjoy the rest of the conference day. And thank you so much, Dave and Marla.
Thank you for having us.